Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. I am so incredibly excited to guide you through today's explainer, because this one serves as an absolutely essential blueprint within our wallets, account abstraction, and key management track. Today, we're taking a fascinating look at the functional design patterns for multisig wallets. We are going to map out exactly how to build smart contract structures that aren't just secure, but highly functional and actually testable. So let's get right into it.
Now, just to set the stage for a second, let's quickly bridge from where we were in our previous explainer preparing to design multisig contracts. Last time, we spent a lot of time in the conceptual realm of abstract threat modeling, right? We were asking, okay, what exactly are we protecting against? But today, our goal is highly practical. We're moving away from those abstract threat maps, and we are going to sketch out the exact, concrete structural blueprint for our multisig contract. Basically, we're taking the what we need to build and finally designing the how. And here is our master schematic for today's explainer. First, building the multisig foundation. Second, threshold versus role separation. Third, advanced patterns and trade-offs. Fourth, the Solidity skeleton lifecycle. Fifth, testing your approval flow. And finally, number 6, key takeaways for implementation. All right, part 1, building the multisig foundation.
Okay, let's really dive into this. You know, every strong architectural blueprint has to start with a solid foundational block. Before we can even think about engineering complex, multi-signature access controls, we absolutely have to understand the fundamental units of data that our smart contract will be passing around. And it all begins with the transaction object. This is what explicitly defines the target address, the value being sent, and the calldata. But the real magic here, the real secret sauce, is the nonce. Think of a nonce like a ticket number at a crowded, slightly chaotic deli. You walk in, you pull ticket number 42. When the person behind the counter yells, "Number 42, you step up, hand in your ticket, and get your sandwich. If someone else runs into the shop 5 minutes later shouting, "Hey, I'm number 42, the deli owner is just going to laugh at them, right? The ticket is spent. It's done. In our smart contract, the nonce does exactly that. It ensures a transaction is completely unique. It effectively guarantees that no one can maliciously replay an old approval to execute a transaction or, charge you gas twice. Moving right along to Section 2, core patterns, threshold versus role separation. So now that we have our foundational transaction object sorted out, how do we actually manage who gets to approve these things? Well, there are 2 primary architectural patterns we look at here. The first is the owner threshold model. Imagine this as a simple combination lock where a peer group shares power. If the threshold is, say, 2 out of 3, any 2 owners can spin the dial and pop open the vault. It's flat, it's really simple, and it's fantastic for small teams. On the flip side, we have the role-separated model. Now, this is a lot more like a strict corporate policy. You have very distinct roles. There's a proposer who drafts the transaction, an approver who audits and signs it, and an executor who actually triggers it. The brilliant part about this pattern is the hard operational boundary it creates. The person writing the check absolutely cannot be the one signing it. Which brings us to Section 3, advanced patterns and trade-offs. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing how we adapt as things grow. Because as we scale our Web3 architecture for much larger organizations or, handle way more sensitive operations, a standard lock just isn't always going to cut it. We have to map out some core architectural trade-offs. If you look at the owner threshold and role-separated mechanisms, these rely on simple on-chain confirmation mappings. They are incredibly straightforward to write and honestly a breeze to test. But the catch is you pay a higher gas cost per confirmation. Now contrast that with the signature-based pattern down at the bottom. With this one, you verify ECDS's signatures off-chain, and then you submit them all at once. It saves a massive amount of on-chain gas. But it introduces some pretty complex cryptographic logic and makes testing significantly harder. It's your classic engineering dilemma, right? Do you want simple on-chain storage, or do you want those sweet off-chain gas savings? All right, let's shift gears to Section 4, the Solidity skeleton lifecycle. Let's look at the schematics for how a transaction actually moves through the system. We know the patterns now, but what does the operational flow look like from a Solidity perspective? Well, this right here is the 3-step heartbeat of our multisig. Step 1 is submit. A user calls the contract to append a brand new transaction object with a fresh nonce, remember, to the array. Step 2 is confirm. Authorized addresses interact with the contract to explicitly record their approval, which increments a counter. And finally, step 3 is execute. Once that threshold is officially met, the call is triggered. But listen closely, because the absolutely vital engineering principle here is that state transitions must be explicitly tracked and updated at every single step. For example, in step 3, you literally must flip the transaction status to executed before you actually trigger the external call. That is your primary number one defense against devastating reentrancy attacks. Next up, section 5, testing your approval flow. And that warning about reentrancy brings us seamlessly to testing. In the immersive developer learning programs we run over at Forge College, this is the exact phase where we tell our students to just slow down. Rigorous, methodical testing isn't just some nice-to-have best practice. It is literally the backbone of everything we teach and everything we build. So let's pause for a second and ask the ultimate developer's question: why does designing for explicit state transitions and clear testing actually matter so much in practice? I mean, if we're building on a blockchain where every single operation costs money, why wouldn't we just jump straight into optimizing all our code for gas from day one? Well, we don't do that because of this golden rule: design for testability before optimizing gas. Look, I get it. It is incredibly tempting to want to pack all your transaction confirmations into a really clever single integer bitmap just to save a few pennies. When you do it, it makes you feel like an absolute coding genius. But let me tell you, saving a few cents on gas is entirely meaningless if a tiny bug in your complex bitwise logic allows an attacker to just walk in and drain your entire treasury. No way. You absolutely must design your contract so that its state transitions are completely observable and completely testable. Make sure the vault door actually locks first. Then, and only then, can you start worrying about making the hinges a little lighter.
Finally, section 6, key takeaways for implementation.
So, the crucial point here is that our foundational design completely dictates our eventual security. Let's do one final blueprint review before we close out this explainer and prepare for actual hands-on development. Here are your core principles to bridge the gap straight into your IDE. First, make the transaction lifecycle explicitly clear using strict objects and nonces. Second, choose an access role model, whether that's a simple threshold or a strict role separation that perfectly matches the operational policy of the team that's actually using it. And third, relentlessly prioritize testability via observable state transitions. These are the absolute core principles you will carry directly into our next lesson in the module, which is implementing multisig mechanisms in Solidity. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. When you sit down to write your Solidity code tomorrow, will your state transitions be explicit enough and tested enough to survive a single key compromise? That is the standard you're building for in Web3. Thank you so much for diving into these blueprints with me today. I highly encourage you to visit forge.college to learn more about this subject, explore our comprehensive tracks, and continue building your Web3 mastery. Keep building, keep testing, and I'll see you in the next one.